Have you ever felt like you were in a lifelong rivalry with someone? Maybe a sibling? Well, get ready for a story about the most intense sibling rivalry in history, a conflict that was prophesied before the two brothers were even born. This is the story of Jacob and Esau, and it starts with a miracle. Meet Isaac and Rebekah. You might remember Isaac, the son of Abraham, the one who was almost sacrificed on a mountain. He and his wife, Rebekah, had everything they could want, except for one thing they desperately longed for: children. For 20 long years they prayed. Their home was quiet. Their hopes felt distant. They pleaded with God, year after year, until finally something incredible happened. God heard their prayers and Rebekah became pregnant. But this was no ordinary pregnancy. Rebekah felt a constant violent struggle within her. It was so intense, so unsettling that she cried out to God asking, "If this is what it's like, why is this happening to me?" It felt like a battle was being waged inside her womb. And in a way it was. God gave her a stunning revelation. He told her, "2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." Imagine hearing that. Before they even had names, these 2 babies already had a destiny of conflict, and the traditional order of things was going to be completely turned upside down. When the time came, the first baby was born. He was red and covered in hair, like a furry little coat. They named him Esau, which sounds like the Hebrew word for hairy. He was the firstborn, the heir, the one who would receive the special blessing and a double portion of the inheritance. But then something absolutely bizarre happened. As Esau came into the world, his twin brother reached out and grabbed onto his heel. He was literally trying to pull his brother back, to be the first one out. Because he was a heel grabber, they named him Jacob, a name that would later come to mean he who supplants or deceives. From the very first moment of their lives, the struggle for dominance had begun. The boys grew up to be as different as night and day. Esau was a man of the wild. He was a skillful hunter, rugged, impulsive, and loved the open country. His father, Isaac, absolutely adored him, especially because he loved the taste of the wild game Esau would bring home. Esau was the quintessential man's man of his time. Jacob, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. The Bible describes him as a quiet man dwelling in tents. He wasn't out wrestling lions or tracking deer. He was a homebody, thoughtful, and preferred the company of the camp. He was his mother Rebekah's favorite. You can already see the family dynamic taking shape, can't you? 2 very different sons, each with a parent favoring them, and a prophecy of conflict hanging over their heads. It was a recipe for drama, and that drama was about to boil over in the most unexpected way. It all came down to a single fateful moment and a bowl of stew. Picture this. Esau comes stumbling in from the fields, exhausted and famished. He's been hunting all day, probably with no luck, and he's at the point of death, as he dramatically puts it. The smell of something delicious fills the air. It's Jacob, the quiet tent-dweller, cooking a thick, savory lentil stew. Esau, driven by his immediate physical hunger, looks at his brother and groans, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew." "I'm starving." Now, Jacob sees his opportunity. He's been thinking, observing, and waiting. He knows the prophecy. He knows the value of the birthright, that special status as the firstborn which entitled Esau to leadership of the family and a double share of the inheritance. It wasn't just about money. It was a spiritual blessing, a covenant promise passed down from Abraham, and Jacob wanted it more than anything. So he looks at his starving, impulsive brother and makes a calculated offer. "Fine," Jacob says, "but first sell me your birthright, right now." Think about the audacity of that proposal. He's leveraging his brother's momentary weakness for a prize of eternal significance. Any normal person might have laughed it off, but Esau wasn't thinking about the future, about legacy, or about God's covenant. He was thinking about his rumbling stomach. His response is shocking. "Look," Esau says, "I am about to die. What good is the birthright to me? In that single sentence, Esau showed how little he valued his sacred inheritance. To him, it was worthless compared to satisfying his immediate hunger. He despised his birthright, treating a holy promise like a disposable trinket. Jacob, ever the strategist, presses his advantage. "Swear to me first," he insists. He wants it to be official, an unbreakable oath. And Esau, without a second thought, swears the oath. He sells his birthright, his entire future legacy as the firstborn, for a single meal. Jacob then gives Esau the bread and the lentil stew. Esau eats and drinks, gets up, and leaves. Just like that, the transaction is complete. He got his full belly, and Jacob got the birthright. This one seemingly small event, a simple trade made out of desperation and convenience, would set in motion a chain of events filled with deception, betrayal, and heartbreak that would change the course of their family forever. It was the first major victory for the younger brother, the heel grabber, and a devastating loss for the firstborn, who didn't appreciate what he had until it was gone. The prophecy that the older would serve the younger was beginning to unfold. This story teaches us a powerful lesson about what we value. Do we trade things of lasting, eternal importance for moments of temporary comfort? Esau's choice shows us the danger of living only for the here and now. Jacob's actions, while cunning and opportunistic, reveal a deep desire for the spiritual blessings he wasn't born with. As time went by, Isaac, having lived a long and full life, now found his world shrouded in darkness, his eyes having failed him. Believing his final days were near, he called for Esau, his firstborn and favored son. The weight of his years was heavy, and the time had come to pass on the patriarchal blessing, a sacred inheritance of divine favor and prosperity. He instructed Esau to go out into the field, to hunt game and prepare a savory meal, the kind Isaac loved. Upon his return after he had eaten, Isaac would bestow upon him the blessing that was his birthright. This was meant to be a solemn, intimate moment between a father and his chosen heir, a final act of patriarchal duty before passing from the world. But the walls of their tents were thin, and words spoken in supposed privacy often found other ears. Unseen, but hearing every word, was Rebekah. Her heart, which had always favored her younger son, Jacob, now beat with a sudden and audacious purpose. The prophecy given to her before the twins were born, that the older would serve the younger, echoed in her mind. She had always believed Jacob was destined for greatness, for the leadership of the clan, and now she saw a moment, a fleeting and risky opportunity to secure that destiny. She could not leave this pivotal moment to chance or to Isaac's misplaced favoritism. The blessing in her eyes belonged to Jacob. With this conviction burning within her, she went to find Jacob, her mind already racing, weaving the threads of a daring and dangerous deception. The plan was as audacious as it was simple. Jacob would take Esau's place. Rebekah laid out her scheme to a hesitant Jacob. She would prepare a savory meal from 2 of their best young goats, a dish so expertly seasoned it would be indistinguishable from wild game. While she cooked, Jacob was to prepare for his role. The primary obstacle was not the voice, as the twins' voices were similar enough, but the physical differences. Esau was a hairy man, his arms and the nape of his neck covered in coarse hair, a testament to his rugged outdoorsman nature. Jacob, by contrast, was smooth-skinned. This was the detail that could unravel their entire plot. Jacob voiced his fear. "My father will feel me, and I shall seem to him a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing." But Rebekah's resolve was ironclad. "Upon me be your curse, my son," she declared, taking the full weight of the potential sin upon herself. Only obey my voice and go." She took Esau's finest garments, which carried the distinct earthy scent of the field, and had Jacob put them on. To complete the disguise, she cleverly fashioned coverings from the skins of the young goats, placing them on Jacob's smooth hands and on the back of his neck. Now, not only would he smell like Esau, but he would also feel like him. With the masquerade complete and the steaming dish in his hands, Jacob, trembling with a mixture of fear and ambition, approached his father's darkened tent. He entered the tent, his heart pounding in his chest. "My father," he called out, his voice a little shaky. Isaac, hearing the voice, was immediately stirred. "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" Jacob, committed to the lie, replied, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me." A flicker of suspicion crossed Isaac's face. The voice was Jacob's, but the statement was Esau's. "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" Isaac probed, his blindness sharpening his other senses. Jacob, thinking fast, invoked the divine, a risky but necessary escalation of the deceit. "Because the Lord your God granted me success," he said. The answer, while plausible, did not entirely quell Isaac's doubts. "Please come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." This was the moment of truth. Jacob moved closer, extending his goatskin-covered hands. Isaac reached out, his old, wrinkled hands running over the hairy texture. He felt the back of Jacob's neck. The feel was that of Esau, yet the doubt lingered. "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau," Isaac murmured, caught in a web of sensory contradiction. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. Torn between his hearing and his touch, Isaac ultimately allowed the physical evidence to sway him. He ate the meal Jacob served and drank the wine he brought. His doubts subsided, replaced by the satisfaction of the meal and the anticipation of the blessing. Isaac pulled Jacob close to kiss him, and as he did, he smelled the scent of Esau's clothes, the unmistakable aroma of the outdoors. This final sensory detail sealed the deception. "See, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed," Isaac declared. Believing he was blessing his firstborn, Isaac poured out the patriarchal benediction. He blessed Jacob with the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, with an abundance of grain and new wine. He proclaimed, "Let people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." The irrevocable words were spoken. The blessing, with all its power and promise, had been transferred. Jacob had stolen the birthright for a bowl of soup, and now he had stolen the blessing through a calculated act of fraud. Scarcely had Jacob left his father's presence, the powerful words of the blessing still ringing in his ears, when Esau returned from his hunt. He prepared the savory dish his father had requested, and brought it to Isaac's tent, full of pride and expectation. "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me," he announced cheerfully. A chilling confusion gripped Isaac. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I am your son, your firstborn Esau," he replied. The full weight of the deception crashed down upon Isaac. He trembled violently, a profound and terrible shudder shaking his aged frame. "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me, and I ate it all before you came, and I have blessed him?" he cried out in anguish. Yes, and he shall be blessed. The words of the blessing, once spoken, could not be taken back. When Esau heard his father's words, he let out a great and bitter cry, a sound of pure agony and betrayal. Bless me, even me also, O my father, he pleaded. He recounted Jacob's earlier deception, how he had taken his birthright, and now his blessing. Have you not reserved a blessing for me? He begged, his voice thick with tears. Isaac, heartbroken, explained that he had made Jacob lord over him, that all his brothers would serve him. He had given him the best of the earth and heaven. There was nothing of that magnitude left to give. Esau wept, his grief and rage mingling into a volatile poison. In his heart a seed of murderous hatred took root. He looked at his father's grief and his own stolen future, and he knew who was to blame. The days of mourning for my father are approaching, Esau vowed to himself. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. Rebekah, whose cunning had orchestrated this entire tragedy, once again overheard words not meant for her ears. The news of Esau's murderous vow reached her, and the triumph of her successful plot turned to ash in her mouth. She had secured the blessing for her favored son, but in doing so, she had unleashed a fratricidal rage that now threatened his very life. The family she had sought to shape was now fractured, possibly beyond repair. Her only course of action was to send Jacob away to preserve the life of the son she had elevated at such a great cost. She summoned Jacob and revealed Esau's deadly intentions. She urged him to flee to her brother, Laban, in the distant city of Haran. He was to stay there for a time, she explained, until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. She promised to send word when it was safe for him to return. To secure Isaac's consent for the journey, Rebekah crafted another, more palatable reason for Jacob's departure. She complained to Isaac about Esau's Hittite wives, expressing her despair at the thought of Jacob also marrying a local Canaanite woman. The argument was effective. Isaac, agreeing that Jacob should find a wife from among their own kin, called Jacob, blessed him again, and charged him to go to Paddan Aram, to the house of Laban, and take a wife from there. Thus Jacob, the new patriarch, the bearer of the blessing, fled his home not in triumph, but as a fugitive. He left behind a blind, grieving father and a brother who had sworn to kill him. He was sent away by the very mother who had orchestrated his rise, a mother he would, in fact, never see again. He was running for his life, heading toward an unknown future in a distant land, with nothing but a staff in his hand and a stolen blessing that had cost him everything. End as if it were a prelude to the next part. After deceiving his father and stealing his brother's blessing, Jacob is on the run. He's not just leaving his home. He's leaving behind everything he's ever known. His future is a huge question mark, and his only companion is the guilt gnawing at his heart. As the sun sets, he finds himself in the middle of nowhere. No inn, no tent, just the hard, cold ground. He grabs a stone for a pillow. Can you imagine how uncomfortable that must have been? And lays down, exhausted and filled with dread. This isn't just a physical journey. It's a journey into the unknown, a moment of profound vulnerability. But it's right here, in this moment of absolute desolation, that something extraordinary is about to happen. As Jacob drifts into an uneasy sleep, he begins to dream. But this is no ordinary dream born of anxiety. It's a vivid, powerful vision. He sees a magnificent ladder, or perhaps a staircase standing on the earth with its top reaching all the way into the heavens. It's a breathtaking sight, a bridge connecting the world of man with the realm of the divine. And on this ladder he sees angels, messengers of God, ascending and descending. They're not just flying around, they're actively moving between heaven and earth, a constant, bustling traffic of divine activity. It's a picture of a continuous connection, a sign that even when we feel most distant from God, He is intimately involved with our world. This isn't just a beautiful light show for a lonely traveler. It's a profound revelation. The dream is showing Jacob that heaven is not a distant, inaccessible place. There is a pathway, a link. It signifies that God is not just observing from afar. He is actively engaged with the affairs of humanity. For Jacob, who feels so cut off and isolated, this is a mind-blowing concept. The angel's movement suggests a constant communication and ministry between God and people on earth. It's a visual representation that God's presence is always with us, that there's an open line, a two-way street between our world and His. This ladder is a symbol of hope, a divine assurance that even in our darkest nights, we are never truly alone. And then, at the very top of this celestial staircase, Jacob sees the Lord Himself. God is standing there, and He speaks directly to Jacob. Can you even fathom that? You're at your lowest point, and the Creator of the universe shows up to talk to you. God introduces Himself. I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. He immediately connects Jacob to his heritage, to the promises made to his grandfather and father. It's a powerful reminder that Jacob, despite his flaws and his flight, is still part of a bigger plan, a divine story that began long before him. Then God reaffirms the covenant, the sacred promise. He says, "The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your offspring." Think about that. Jacob is lying on a patch of dirt with a rock for a pillow, a homeless fugitive, and God is promising him an entire country. It's a promise that seems impossible in his current circumstances, but it's a promise rooted in God's faithfulness. God is looking beyond Jacob's present reality and speaking to his future destiny. This promise of land wasn't just about property. It was about a place of belonging, a home, a place of rest and security for him and his future family. But the promise doesn't stop there. God continues, "Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south." From one man alone in the wilderness, God promises a nation so vast it can't be counted, spreading in every direction. This isn't just about a big family. It's about influence and legacy. And then comes the most significant part of the promise. "And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed." This is the ultimate purpose. Jacob's family line wouldn't just be blessed. It would become a source of blessing for the entire world. Through his lineage, salvation and hope would one day be offered to all of humanity. It's the same promise given to Abraham, now being passed directly to the deceiver Jacob. It's a moment of incredible grace. After laying out this grand multi-generational plan, God gets personal. He looks at the terrified man lying on the ground and says, "Behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land." This is exactly what Jacob needed to hear. It's a promise of presence and protection. I am with you. 4 of the most comforting words in any language. God wasn't just a distant deity making grand promises for the future. He was a personal protector for the here and now. He promised to guard Jacob on his dangerous journey to Haran and, crucially, to bring him safely back home. God essentially tells him, "I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." This is an ironclad guarantee. God is committing himself to Jacob's journey every step of the way. He is not leaving Jacob's side. Jacob's reaction is exactly what you'd expect. He wakes up, and the first thing he feels is not relief, but awe-filled fear. He exclaims, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." It's a sudden, shocking realization. This random spot where he laid his head, this desolate piece of wilderness, was not empty at all. It was filled with the presence of God. He was sleeping on holy ground without even realizing it. How often are we like that? We go about our days feeling alone in our struggles, completely unaware that God is right there with us in the ordinary, mundane places of our lives. He is terrified, but it's a holy fear, a reverence. He says, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." He recognizes the significance of what he has experienced. And this isn't just any place. It's a nexus point, a portal between heaven and earth. So he renames the place. It was called Luz, but Jacob calls it Bethel, which in Hebrew means house of God. He is marking this spot as sacred, a place where he personally encountered the living God. It's a memorial to the moment his life was forever changed. Then Jacob does something very human. He makes a vow. Inspired and still trembling from his encounter, he sets up the stone he used as a pillow, pours oil on it to consecrate it, and makes a deal with God. He says, "If God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God." It's a conditional promise. Jacob is essentially saying, "God, if you do all these things you just promised, protect me, provide for me, and bring me home, then I will fully commit to you. You will be my God, this stone will be your house, and I will give you 1/10 of everything I receive." Now, we could look at this as Jacob still being a bit of a wheeler-dealer, trying to bargain with God. But we can also see it as the response of a man who is just beginning his journey of faith. He's taking what God offered and turning it into a personal commitment. He's not just passively receiving the promise, he's actively engaging with it. His faith is still young, a bit transactional, perhaps, but it's a start. He is responding to God's incredible grace with a pledge of his own. This vow marks Jacob's personal turning point. He left home as a deceiver running from his past. He now continues his journey as a man with a divine promise, a future, and a personal covenant with God. He is no longer just Jacob the fugitive. He is Jacob, the man who met God at Bethel. After fleeing his home and meeting God, he arrives in Haran, tired and dusty, and makes his way to the local well. And there he sees her. Her name is Rachel. She is a shepherdess, and to Jacob she is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. It's love at first sight, the kind of epic romance you see in movies. He is so moved that he single-handedly rolls away the heavy stone covering the well, a task that usually takes several men, just to water her flock. He introduces himself, discovers she's his cousin, the daughter of his uncle Laban, and is so overwhelmed with joy and relief that he actually weeps. It's a powerful, raw, and incredibly human moment. He's found his family, and he's found the love of his life. Rachel runs home to tell her father, Laban, about the arrival of their kinsman. Laban welcomes Jacob with open arms, inviting him to stay. For a month, Jacob lives and works with Laban's family, and every single day his love for Rachel grows deeper. He can't imagine his life without her. Finally, Laban approaches him. "You shouldn't work for me for free just because you're family," he says. "Name your price. What shall your wages be?" For Jacob, the answer is simple. There's only one thing he wants, one prize more valuable than any amount of silver or gold. "I will work for you for 7 years, Jacob declares, in exchange for your younger daughter, Rachel. 7 years, that's a long time. But in Jacob's mind, fueled by his passionate love for Rachel, the years would feel like just a few days. Laban agrees to the deal, saying, "It's better that I give her to you than to some other man." And so the contract is sealed. Jacob embarks on a 7-year-long labor of love. He toils under the hot sun, tends the flocks, and works tirelessly, all with the image of Rachel in his mind. The 7 years fly by, just as he predicted. Each day brings him closer to the moment he can finally call her his wife. When the time is up, Jacob goes to Laban, his heart brimming with anticipation. "My time is complete," he says. "Give me my wife so I may be with her." Laban throws a huge wedding feast. The whole community is invited to celebrate. There's music, dancing, and joy fills the air. Jacob is on top of the world, about to marry the woman he has loved and worked for 7 long years. As evening falls and the festivities wind down, the bride, veiled from head to toe according to custom, is brought to Jacob's tent. The night is dark, the celebration has been long, and Jacob, finally united with his bride, is ecstatic. But when morning comes, Jacob gets the shock of his life. He wakes up, looks at the woman beside him, and his world comes crashing down. It's not Rachel. It's Leah, her older, less favored sister. He's been tricked, deceived by the very man he called uncle, the man he had served faithfully for 7 years. Can you imagine the betrayal, the heartbreak, the absolute fury? Jacob storms out to confront Laban. "What is this you have done to me?" he demands. "Wasn't it for Rachel that I served you? Why have you deceived me?" He's been played, and he knows it. But Laban, cool as a cucumber, has a ready-made excuse. "It is not our custom here," he explains calmly, "to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. What a convenient custom to mention asterisk after asterisk the wedding night." Laban's excuse is flimsy, but he holds all the power. He then presents Jacob with a new outrageous proposal. "Finish this daughter's bridal week," Laban says, referring to Leah, "and then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work." Jacob is trapped. He loves Rachel too much to walk away. His heart aches for her, and he can't bear the thought of losing her now. So with a heavy heart he agrees. He spends the week with Leah, his new and unwanted wife, and at the end of that week, Laban gives him Rachel to be his wife as well. The love of his life is finally his, but the price was immense: a broken trust, a lifetime of family rivalry, and another 7 years of servitude. So Jacob finds himself in a situation he never could have imagined. He's now married to 2 sisters. He has the wife he loves with all his heart, Rachel, and the wife he was tricked into marrying, Leah. This sets the stage for one of the most complex and emotionally charged family dynamics in history. It becomes a household filled with jealousy, competition, and heartache, as two sisters vie for the affection of one man. Jacob's journey, which began with a single-minded, passionate love, has now become a tangled web of obligations, deceit, and complicated relationships. He got the woman he wanted, but at a cost he never anticipated. This story reminds us that even when we pursue our greatest desires with all our might, life has a way of throwing curveballs that can change everything in an instant. The path of love is rarely simple, and for Jacob, it has just become incredibly complicated. Jacob, having been tricked into marrying Leah, finally marries his true love, Rachel, but the story is far from over. This is where the family drama really kicks into high gear, shaping the future of an entire nation. So picture this. Jacob is living with his two wives, who are also sisters. It's a complicated household, to say the least. The text tells us that Jacob loved Rachel, but Leah was unloved. In this painful situation, God saw Leah's distress and had compassion on her. While Rachel, the beloved wife, remained barren, Leah began to have children. Her firstborn son was named Reuben. Leah said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." You can feel the hope and the heartache in her words. She longed for her husband's affection, believing a son would finally win his heart. But it didn't quite work out that way. Soon after, she had another son, Simeon. This time she said, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too." The pattern continued. Her third son was Levi, and with his birth she declared, "Now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Each name is a cry from her heart, a testament to her deep desire for connection and love from Jacob. Then came her 4th son, Judah. This time there's a subtle shift in Leah's words. She says, "This time I will praise the Lord." It seems that perhaps she was beginning to find her worth and solace, not in her husband's love, but in her relationship with God. And Judah's name, which means praise, would echo through history, as he would become the ancestor of King David and, ultimately, the Messiah. After Judah, Leah stopped having children for a time. Meanwhile, Rachel was watching her sister have son after son, and her own desperation grew. She was the one Jacob loved, the one he had worked 14 years for, yet she was the one without children. In that culture, barrenness was seen as a deep source of shame and sorrow. It was a crisis for her. Finally, in a fit of jealousy and despair, Rachel went to Jacob and cried out, "Give me children, or I'll die." It's a raw, powerful moment that shows just how much this meant to her. Jacob became angry, replying, "Am I in the place of God, who has kept you from having children?" He reminds her and us that life is a gift from God. Desperate, Rachel resorted to a common custom of the time. She gave her maidservant, Bilhah, to Jacob as a wife, so that Bilhah could bear children on Rachel's behalf. It was a proxy motherhood. Bilhah conceived and gave Jacob a son. Rachel named him Dan, saying, "God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son." Soon after, Bilhah had a second son, and Rachel named him Naphtali, which means "my struggle," saying, "I have had a great struggle with my sister, and I have won." You can just feel the rivalry escalating. This wasn't just about having children anymore. It was a competition. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, and that Rachel was now building a family through her maidservant, she decided to do the same. Not to be outdone, she gave her maidservant, Zilpah, to Jacob. Zilpah gave birth to a son, and Leah named him Gad. which can mean good fortune or a troop is coming. Then Zilpah bore a second son, and Leah named him Asher, meaning happy, declaring, "How happy I am! The women will call me happy." The household was now filled with the sounds of 8 sons, born to 4 different mothers, all under one roof. The tension must have been immense. The story then takes another strange turn with an incident involving mandrakes. Leah's son Reuben found some mandrake plants, which were believed to be an aid to fertility. Rachel, still desperate for a child of her own, saw them and asked Leah for some. Leah's response was sharp. "Wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too?" This reveals so much about the pain and resentment simmering between them. But Rachel was willing to bargain. She made an astonishing offer. She would let Jacob spend the night with Leah in exchange for the mandrakes. A deal was struck. That night, Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a 5th son, Issachar, saying it was her reward for giving her maidservant to her husband. After that, she had another son, Zebulun, and finally a daughter named Dinah. By this point, Leah had given Jacob 6 sons and a daughter. Through all this turmoil, all this rivalry and pain, God had not forgotten Rachel. The narrative says, "Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive." After years of waiting, of watching her sister and their maidservants bear children, Rachel's moment finally came. She gave birth to a son, and with overwhelming joy and relief, she named him Joseph, which means, "May he add." She declared, "God has taken away my disgrace," and then she prayed, "May the Lord add to me another son." This son, Joseph, born out of years of longing, would become Jacob's favorite. His birth marks a major turning point in the family's story, setting the stage for one of the most famous and dramatic narratives in the entire Bible, the story of Joseph and his brothers. So now Jacob has 11 sons and a daughter. This large, complex, and conflicted family is the foundation of the 12 tribes of Israel. Each child's birth is wrapped in the human emotions of jealousy, love, longing, and faith. After all this time, a deep longing for his homeland begins to stir in Jacob's heart. He's ready to go home. He goes to Laban and says, "Send me on my way so I can go back to my own homeland." But Laban, being the shrewd businessman he is, knows that Jacob is the reason for his prosperity. He pleads, "If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you." Laban offers to pay Jacob whatever he wants. This sets the stage for a fascinating negotiation, one that will dramatically change Jacob's fortunes. Jacob, having learned a thing or two from his cunning uncle, proposes a unique deal. He tells Laban, "I don't want any wages. Instead, let me go through all your flocks today and remove every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. They will be my wages." Laban, thinking this is a fantastic deal for himself, since such animals were rare, quickly agrees. But Jacob had a plan. He employed a clever, ancient breeding strategy. He took fresh-cut branches of poplar, almond, and plane trees and peeled white stripes on them. He then placed these branches in the watering troughs where the strongest flocks came to drink and mate. The idea was that when the animals mated in front of these striped branches, their offspring would be streaked, speckled, or spotted. And it worked. The stronger animals produced speckled and spotted offspring, which belonged to Jacob, while the weaker ones remained with Laban. As Jacob's flocks multiplied, so did his wealth. He became exceedingly prosperous, with large flocks, servants, camels, and donkeys. But his success didn't go unnoticed. A shadow of jealousy began to fall over the household. Laban's sons started whispering, "Jacob has taken everything our father owned and has gained all this wealth from what belonged to us." Jacob also noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not what it used to be. The friendly atmosphere had turned sour, filled with envy and resentment. The tension was becoming unbearable. It was clear that Jacob's time in Haran was coming to a difficult and dangerous end. He was caught between his desire to leave and the growing hostility of his own family. Just when things seemed at their worst, Jacob received a divine message. The Lord appeared to him and said, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you." This was the confirmation Jacob needed. He knew he couldn't just announce his departure. Laban would never let him go with all his wealth, so he had to make a plan in secret. He called Rachel and Leah out to the fields, away from prying ears, and laid out his case. He reminded them of how their father had cheated him and changed his wages 10 times, but how God had protected him and ensured his prosperity. He told them about his dream and God's command to return to Canaan. To his relief, Rachel and Leah were completely on his side. They felt their father had treated them like foreigners, selling them and using up their dowry. They declared, "So do whatever God has told you." With his wives' support, Jacob made his move. While Laban was away shearing his sheep, Jacob gathered his children, his wives, and all his livestock and possessions. He secretly fled, crossing the Euphrates River and heading toward the hill country of Gilead. For 3 days Laban was oblivious, but when the news of Jacob's escape reached him, he was furious. He gathered his relatives and set off in hot pursuit, a chase that lasted for 7 days. He finally caught up to Jacob in the hill country of Gilead. Laban was ready for a confrontation, but the night before he reached Jacob, God came to him in a dream with a stern warning. "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." This divine intervention completely changed the dynamic. Laban was still angry, but now he was also afraid. The next morning the confrontation happened, but it was tempered by God's warning. Laban accused Jacob of deceit and of stealing his household gods, which Rachel had secretly taken. Jacob, unaware of Rachel's actions, vehemently denied the theft and allowed Laban to search his entire camp. Of course, Laban found nothing. Now it was Jacob's turn to be angry, and he let loose his years of frustration with Laban. After the heated exchange, they decided to make a covenant of peace. They set up a stone pillar and a heap of stones as a witness between them. Laban named it Jegar-Sahadutha, and Jacob called it Gilead. Laban declared, "May the Lord keep watch between you and me when we are away from each other." This place was also called Mizpah. They made a pact that neither would cross this boundary to harm the other. They shared a meal, and the next morning Laban kissed his grandchildren and daughters and returned home. Jacob was finally free, heading toward the land God had promised him, with a new set of challenges waiting on the horizon. After 20 years away, Jacob is finally heading home, but a massive shadow looms over his return. His brother, Esau, remember him? The brother Jacob tricked out of his birthright and blessing. Yeah, that guy. The last time Jacob heard, Esau was coming to meet him with 400 men. This wasn't a welcome party. It sounded like an army. Jacob is a wealthy man now. He has wives, children, and vast flocks of livestock. But all that wealth means nothing in the face of his brother's potential wrath. He is terrified. His success feels fragile, like it could all be wiped out in a single violent encounter. So what does he do? He does what any clever, albeit frightened, person would do. He tries to buy his brother's forgiveness. He masterminds a plan that is both strategic and a little desperate. He separates a massive gift of livestock, hundreds of goats, ewes, camels, cows, and donkeys, and sends them ahead in waves. He instructs his servants, "When Esau my brother meets you and asks, 'To whom do you belong? And where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you?' You shall say, 'They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau. And moreover, he is behind us.'" The idea was to soften Esau up, gift by gift, before Jacob even had to look him in the eye. It's a calculated attempt to appease the anger that has likely been simmering for 2 decades. But even with this elaborate plan in motion, Jacob knows that material gifts might not be enough to fix a wound so deep. His fear drives him to the only place he is left to turn, God. He sends his family and all his possessions across the river Jabbok, and then he finds himself completely alone in the darkness. This is where he offers one of the most honest and vulnerable prayers in the entire Bible. He starts by reminding God of his promise. "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord, who said to me, 'Return to your country and to your kindred, and I will do you good.' I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant." He admits his unworthiness, acknowledging that everything he has is a gift from God. Then he lays his fear bare. "Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me." The mothers with the children. He's not just afraid for himself. He's terrified for his innocent family. This prayer shows us a different side of Jacob, the trickster, the strategist, the man who always has a plan, is now admitting he has no control. He is completely dependent on God for protection. After his prayer, he prepares for the worst, splitting his camp into 2 groups. His logic was that if Esau attacked one camp, the other might have a chance to escape. It's a grim, pragmatic move that reveals the depth of his anxiety. With his plan in place and his prayer uttered, Jacob waits alone in the dead of night. And what happens next is one of the most mysterious and profound events in the entire Bible. A man appears out of the darkness and begins to wrestle with him. We're not told who this man is at first. Is it a robber? An assassin sent by Esau? The text is intentionally vague. All we know is that they wrestle a real physical struggle, all through the night until the first light of dawn. This isn't a quick scuffle. This is an all-night marathon of grappling and straining. Jacob, the man who has spent his life wrestling with people metaphorically, with his brother, his father-in-law, is now in a literal wrestling match for his life. As morning approaches, the mysterious man sees he cannot overpower Jacob. So he touches the socket of Jacob's hip, and instantly it's wrenched out of place. Jacob is now injured in pain, but he does not let go. The man says, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob, clinging on with everything he has, gasps back, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Think about that. Even in agony, with his hip dislocated, Jacob recognizes he's not wrestling with an ordinary man. He's holding on to something divine, and he refuses to release his grip until he receives a blessing. He has spent his whole life scheming to get blessings, but here he's clinging to the source of the blessing itself, demanding it through sheer perseverance and desperation. The man asks him, "What is your name?" He answers, "Jacob." The name Jacob means supplanter or deceiver. It's a name that has defined his entire life of trickery and manipulation. Then the man declares, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." This is the turning point. Jacob is given a new name, a new identity. Israel. He struggles with God. His life is no longer defined by deceiving others, but by his struggle with the divine. He doesn't win the fight in a traditional sense. He walks away with a permanent limp. But he prevails because he refused to give up. He held on. The limp would be a lifelong reminder of this night, a reminder that his strength came not from his own cunning, but from his dependence on God, a dependence he learned by wrestling with him. Jacob then names the place Peniel, which means face of God, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." As the sun rises, Jacob, now Israel, limps toward the reunion he's been dreading. He sees Esau and his 400 men approaching in the distance. The fear is still there. He arranges his family with his most beloved wife, Rachel, and son, Joseph, in the very back for the most protection. Then he does something completely out of character for the old Jacob. He goes ahead of everyone. He, the injured one, walks out to meet his brother, and he bows to the ground 7 times as he approaches. This isn't a trick. This is humility. The man who stole the blessing is now bowing before the brother he wronged, and the response is breathtaking. Esau runs to meet him. He doesn't draw a sword. He opens his arms. He embraces Jacob, falls on his neck, and kisses him. And the 2 brothers, separated for 20 years by bitterness and fear, just stand there and weep. All the gifts, all the strategic planning, in the end, what mattered was this moment of raw human connection. Esau's heart had been changed. He looks at Jacob's family and asks, "Who are these with you?" And Jacob responds, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." He tries to give Esau the massive gift he sent ahead, but Esau initially refuses, saying, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." But Jacob insists, "No, please, if I have found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably." In that moment, seeing the grace and forgiveness on Esau's face was like seeing the face of God all over again. The feared enemy had become a source of grace. The reunion that Jacob had dreaded became a moment of profound reconciliation and healing. Jacob's journey, which began in fear and deception, ends here in forgiveness and a new identity. He wrestled with God and man, and through that struggle he finally found peace. He walks away a changed man, with a limp in his step and a new name, Israel, a testament to the fact that sometimes our greatest blessings are found not in avoiding our struggles, but in wrestling through them. Jacob and his large family have settled near the city of Shechem. Life seems to be finding a new rhythm after their dramatic departure from Laban and the tense reunion with Esau, Jacob's only daughter, Dinah, a young woman curious about the world around her, decides to go out and meet the local women of the land. However, this innocent outing takes a devastating turn. Shechem, the son of Hamor, the ruler of that area, sees Dinah. He takes her and forces himself upon her, a terrible act that dishonors Jacob's entire family. The scripture tells us that after this horrific act, Shechem's soul became bound to Dinah. He fell in love with her and spoke tenderly to her. He then goes to his father, Hamor, and says, "Get me this girl as my wife." When Jacob hears what happened, he is deeply distressed, but his sons are out in the fields with the livestock. He holds his peace, waiting for them to return. When they arrive and learn of the outrage committed against their sister, they are filled with fury and grief. To them, what Shechem did was a disgraceful thing in Israel, something that should never be done. At this point, Hamor, Shechem's father, comes to speak with Jacob and his sons. He proposes a union between their peoples. He says, "The soul of my son, Shechem, longs for your daughter. Please give her to him in marriage. Intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us, and take our daughters for yourselves. You can live among us, and the land will be open to you." Shechem himself then pleads with Jacob and his sons. He is desperate. He says, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and whatever you say to me, I will give. Ask of me a bride price and a gift ever so great, and I will give whatever you ask. Only give me the young woman to be my wife." He is willing to do anything to make amends and marry the woman he now professes to love. But Dinah's brothers, particularly Simeon and Levi, are not interested in peace treaties or bride prices. They feel a burning need for retribution. They see the offer not as a genuine attempt at reconciliation, but as a way for Shechem to get what he wants without facing true consequences for his violent act. So they answer Shechem and his father deceitfully. They say, "We cannot do this thing, to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a disgrace to us. Only on this condition will we agree with you, that you will become like us by circumcising all your males. Then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to ourselves." This proposal sounds reasonable to Hamor and Shechem. They see it as the price of admission for this alliance and for Shechem to have Dinah. They go to the gate of their city and persuade all the men of Shechem to agree to this condition. They argue that Jacob's family is peaceful and that merging with them, with all their wealth and livestock, will be prosperous for everyone. The men of the city agree, and every male in Shechem is circumcised. For 2 days the city is in a state of vulnerability. The men are in pain and recovering from the procedure. This is the moment Simeon and Levi have been waiting for. On the 3rd day, when the men of Shechem are at their weakest, the 2 brothers take their swords, enter the unsuspecting city, and enact a brutal revenge. They kill every single male, including Hamor and his son, Shechem. They then take their sister Dinah from Shechem's house and leave. The other sons of Jacob then join in, plundering the city. They take the flocks, the herds, the donkeys, and everything of value. They also capture the women and children. It is a scene of utter devastation, an act of collective punishment that goes far beyond the initial crime. When Jacob learns what his sons have done, he is horrified, but not just for moral reasons. He is terrified of the practical consequences. He says to Simeon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me by making me a stench to the inhabitants of the land. My numbers are few, and if they gather themselves against me and attack me, I shall be destroyed, both I and my household." Jacob's concern is one of survival. He sees his son's rage as a reckless act that has endangered their entire family. But Simeon and Levi are unrepentant. Their response is a raw, emotional cry for their sister's honor. They retort, "Should he treat our sister like a prostitute?" Their question hangs in the air, highlighting the impossible tension between justice, honor, and mercy. Their violent response, while horrific, came from a place of deep protective anger for their sister. In the aftermath of this tragedy, with the family's name now infamous in the region, God speaks to Jacob. The divine command is clear and direct. "Arise, go up to Bethel, and dwell there. Make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." This command is a call back to a pivotal moment in Jacob's life. Bethel was the place where he had his dream of the ladder to heaven, where God first made his covenant promise to him. It was a place of divine encounter and protection. By sending him back to Bethel, God is essentially calling Jacob to purify himself and his household, to leave behind the violence and contamination of Shechem, and to recenter his life on his relationship with God. Jacob takes this command seriously. He tells his household to put away all the foreign gods among them, likely idols, and trinkets taken from the plunder of Shechem or brought from Laban's house, and to purify themselves and change their garments. This is a symbolic act of spiritual cleansing. They bury the idols under a tree near Shechem, and as they journey towards Bethel, a terror from God falls upon the surrounding cities, so no one dares to pursue them. Once they arrive at Bethel, Jacob builds an altar, just as God commanded. He calls the place El Bethel, meaning the God of Bethel, because it was there that God had revealed himself. It is a powerful moment of rededication, but even in this moment of spiritual renewal, sorrow is never far away. The family experiences another loss. Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, who had been with the family for generations, dies and is buried under an oak tree below Bethel. It's a poignant reminder of the passage of time and the fragility of life. Then tragedy strikes Jacob's own heart in the most profound way. As they are traveling from Bethel, not far from their destination of Ephrath, which is Bethlehem, Rachel goes into labor. It is a very difficult labor, and the midwife, trying to encourage her, says, "Do not fear, for you have another son." Rachel, with her last breath, names him Ben-Oni, which means son of my sorrow. But Jacob, perhaps unwilling to let his beloved wife's legacy be one of pain, renames him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. Rachel dies and is buried there on the way to Bethlehem. Jacob sets up a pillar on her grave, a monument to the love of his life, the mother of his two youngest and most cherished sons, Joseph and now Benjamin. The birth of his final son is inextricably linked with the death of his favorite wife. The story then moves swiftly to its final chapters. Jacob continues his journey and eventually returns to his father Isaac in Mamre, near Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had lived. The reunion of father and son after so many decades apart must have been a deeply emotional moment. The narrative concludes with the passing of the patriarch Isaac. He lived to be 180 years old. The scriptures tell us simply that he breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people, old and full of days. And in a final quiet act of reconciliation and filial duty, his two sons, Esau and Jacob, the rivals who had once fought over their father's blessing, come together to bury him. The long, tumultuous family saga comes full circle as the two brothers stand united in their shared grief. Thank you for joining me for this powerful and emotional part of Jacob's story. It's a narrative that doesn't offer easy answers, but forces us to grapple with the deepest aspects of human nature. If you found this meaningful, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next part of our journey. See you next time.